Welcome back to Why I Love Chivalry 2. Now, a bit of background with me on the Chivalry series. I played the original game, and I will say, I was not a fan. I just couldn't get into the original game. I don't know what it was at the time. It might have just been, maybe the gameplay just didn't really catch me, or maybe the battles just weren't big enough for my taste, but yeah, there was something about the original game. I had it, I played it a few times, I found a little bit of enjoyment, but it wasn't really for me. I put it aside and never really came back to it. Chivalry 2, however, is a game that is absolutely madcap insanity. It is the medieval game equivalent of well, what medieval warfare is for Chivalry 2 that Call of Duty is to like World War II shooters in its authenticity. It is nowhere near, and it's the same level of scrappiness as a game of Holdfast, Nations at War. It's just stupid fun, basically. If I had to put it down that right now, I would say it's well worth picking up just because of how silly the whole thing gets. Chivalry 2 is a multiplayer-focused first-person or third-person melee combat medieval game set in a unique setting of fantasy world. Well, not fantasy world. It may as well be with the way the combat works, but a medieval realm where you've got three nations: the Agathians, the Masons, and the Tenosians. The Agathians are your traditional kind of goody two-shoe faction with their blue and white colour scheme. The Masons are the evil, mustache-twirling bad guys with their red and black. And then you got the Tenosians, who are your kind of Arabic-style invaders from afar type faction. All of them are unique in as much as they've got unique voiceovers and some really cool-looking armors and stuff. And there is certainly weapons that can fit, but honestly, the game just allows you to unlock weapons as you go and just like add them to whatever class you're playing and have fun with it. The basic flow of the game, at least the one that I enjoy the most, is the 64-player game type, which has many levels that are focused around attack and defense objectives, which honestly for me, for multiplayer games, is some of the best fun I've had in online games like that. Usually these are maps that are quite large, they're sprawling and have multiple stages to them, involving, let's see, one of the ones that I did enjoy quite a lot was a map where you start off as the Agathians, landing in ships. You jump off onto the beach. You fight the enemy there. You then push on into a small village that's on the coast. You start grabbing pigs and peasants and then dumping them into a hold of a ship, ready to be taken back to the Agathian land. You then fight your way up a hill. You destroy a tower. You then capture a central point in the map by just having more of your people there than the enemy team, and then you push your way up into a kind of ravine area where you push down, where you basically, you push the holy symbols over of the Mason faction, and then race up to the top of the hill to try and kill the person who's like the head, I think it's supposed to be the head warlock, or something like that, who is controlled by a member of the other team, by the way, which there are a few levels that do that in the final stages. And that's it. And you're just running around having these insane, like sometimes one-on-one battles where you're both parrying each other, blocking with shields, blocking with weapons, kicking, sidestepping out of the way. You're trying to counter each other, like guess the timing, stuff like that. You can basically fight like men at times. Or what happens basically every single time you're in one of these battles, you and another guy are clanging swords, you're battling each other back and forth, it feels like it's a bit of an even fight, and then some bloke runs up and just cuts your head off instantly, or one of your teammates runs over and starts smacking him in the spine, and it just becomes like a 2-on-1 fight and the guy just gets killed. It's what usually happens. There are 4 different classes to play in the game. There's your archer, which are the bane of everyone's existence. People absolutely detest archers. To basically prove that, if you do play this game, pick an archer, sit near the back line, not too close to the front line, just a distance where you can see everything. Guarantee you will have at least 2 or 3 people who will break the front line just to run over and try and cut your head off, because that's how much they hate you. You can unlock a few different... There's 3 different subclasses within each, so there's like archer and there's crossbowman, and I think there's a javelin thrower, and they all have their own unique kind of abilities. Like Crossbowman, for instance, can put down a banner which will heal friendlies around it constantly for small amounts of health every second or so. The archer can put down like a flaming brazier that you can basically light your arrows, and then when you hit an enemy, you set them on fire. Hit a friendly, you set them on fire as well. There's friendly fire in this game. You've got like your footman class, which you basically rank and file. They can run around with sword and shield. They can wield maces, and there's even a class that works like an engineer, basically, who can build fortifications or defenses. I say fortifications make it sound like he's building like a building. He's making sort of battlements and stuff that like archers can hide behind, or like spikes that you can sort of delay the enemy team with in areas. You can create choke points and stuff like that. They wield like hammers and gear, and then you've got you then have two that kind of a bit of a crossover class. I think this was just mainly just to tick a box, but whatever. There's basically a class that wields large two-handed weapons like double-headed axes, executioner's axes, gear like that, and then there's a knight class that can wield two-handed swords and like claymores and gear like that, and they kind of differentiate themselves by having like one has a horn that they can blow that will heal everybody around them, and the other one has a bomb that they can throw that will set the floor on fire for so many seconds. Anyone running into it gets set on fire. Again, friend and foe. And you can in an area where there's a lot of people running around, if you just drop one of them on a team, you get a lot of damage. But yeah, the basic ebb and flow of a battle is just dictated by the momentum, really. The one thing it does catch well is momentum. It does feel like when your team is winning a battle, you get the sense that things are in your favour. You feel like you can push that little bit harder. You can go for it to try and get the kills and stuff, because you get a sense that the other players on your team around you are doing just as well. They're downing enemies, and so you start to push the enemy back as their respawns start to stagger more, and yours are sort of, because none of you are getting killed. More of your people are there on the field, and you're able to overwhelm an enemy and sort of gain ground. And it has a great sense of that. The other thing that has a great sense of is humour. Chivalry 2 is all about just stupid moments. From being able to pick up a fish to throw or slap an enemy with, a chair that you can smash them on WWE style with, to a bell that you can hit people with that will actually make the comical, dinging noise. Sitting on chairs just in the middle of the battle and just watching it go on, whether someone runs up and stabs you in the face or not, may or may not happen. Like a level in a church that'll have a confessional that two of you can sit in either side of the booth of. What else? There's all kinds of weirdness. I think there's also being able to play instruments. If you can pick up a lute, I think you can run around and play the lute. Just complete stupidity like that. It doesn't really matter. Being able to stand on a catapult and be launched across the map, sort of Sea of Thieves style, from being fired out of a cannon at other players. There's just a decent amount of just weirdness in the game, just stupid stuff that can happen, and funny moments. The voice acting as well is all incredibly tongue-in-cheek from characters, sounding like every kind of archetype, from just "Alright, you po-dum peasants" to rough house mercenaries to so-called gods of the battlefield walking around going, "Ha ha, of course, you're in the presence of greatness now," that kind of thing. It's up there with just as hammy and cheesy as it can possibly be, and some of the levels are just masterfully put together. The most recent one with the bridge raid level is the Tenosians attacking the Agathians. The last objective in that for the attacking Tenosians is toss the nobles. Where you literally just pick up the noble NPC and throw them into a river just to kill them. But some of the levels are so well put thematically, where you'll spawn not as your class, but you'll spawn as a farmer, at the beginning, just equipped with like a wooden spade or a sickle or something like that, and you're just you're doing your best trying to fight against the other team, who are all obviously running at you with full armor, with big two-handed weapons and stuff. And it's silly. It doesn't matter how many times you die. There's no penalty for the team score-wise for dying. It's all just down to whatever fun you have with it, essentially. Yes, the game can suffer from some matches that are complete stomps, where you just get rolled the whole time, and then others can be just these grinding battles of attrition where you're just desperately holding out, trying to run down the timer, or you're making that last-ditch effort to push and capture an objective just so you can get those few extra minutes to continue and push to the next one. And some matches can just be really, really good like that. The game obviously isn't perfect, though. There are definitely imbalances. Two-handed weapons, like two-handed axes and stuff, are very, very popular. You'll see a lot of players running around with those, who are just... either they've played it for so long that it's the only way that they can play now, or there's something a bit fishy going on with them, not quite sure. Some players can just auto-counter you when you attack them from behind, which is an interesting thing, I've always found. But yeah, some weapons are certainly more desirable, let's say, than others when you start using them, and you'll quickly see why, because they do like good damage and they can swing very, very quickly. But the actual combat itself, if you've ever played like Mount and Blade, any of those kind of games, it's a similar setup, because you use your mouse basically as the aiming tool. So as you swing, you can move your mouse to sort of change the arc of your swing. So if you're going from right to left, normally you will just swing in a short arc in front of you. But if you were to move your mouse left as you were swinging the weapon, you would actually have a wider arc and can hit multiple targets with that. And pressing the left mouse again will give a swing back in the opposite direction. Mouse wheel forward and you will make a thrusting or stabbing attack, and overhead attack, and if you mouse scroll back, you will do a thrusting attack. And different weapons play in different ways. Spears are obviously better at being able to do sort of thrusting attacks because you've got the range on there, whereas overhead attacks will obviously do a bit more damage with things like double axes and gear like that. Sword and shield are obviously very good at being able to counter these kind of things and giving you a faster return attack before they can charge their next swing at you. Little one-handed knives and stuff are great for countering those kind of people, because as they run in, you can obviously like interrupt their attacks by quickly stabbing them or slashing them with those weapons. There are other mechanics in there as well. If you swing your weapon at the exact same time they do, you can actually deflect their attack and be ready immediately to put in another attack on them. If a player is blocking too much or just holding their block, you can kick them with the F key. That will allow you to quickly be able to stagger them and be able to get another swing in of your own. There is, by pressing the spacebar and a direction that you are currently moving in, you will do a quick little like dash to the left, right, front or back, which can just about get you out of the way of a swing or get you into a more advantageous position. And all of this, it does work relatively well. It shows itself better, obviously, in the more intimate one-to-one engagements that you may find yourself in, compared to just the mass scrum of like a choke point on a map, where it's literally just a case of just swinging like crazy and hoping that you're hitting them rather than your teammates. And team damage can occur a lot. You will get hit by friendlies. You will hit friendlies. More often than not, people kind of understand that in the middle of a scrum, it's going to happen. You will get some people who are they're just having a bad day and they will just immediately turn around and start hitting you constantly. But never fear, if that happens too much, they will eventually be kicked from the game. And the amount of friendly damage that can be done is very low. I don't even know if it's actually possible to do quick enough to kill you or down you in that scenario, but it's not an issue I've ever suffered from personally. I mean, even being in a down state, you're not exactly dead. I mean, you will be crawling around on all fours, and more often than not, players will immediately swing to kill a person who's down like that, because you can punch people when you're on the ground. You can do a little like weak punch, but if you hit an enemy 3 times of it, you can press the C key and get right back on your feet. You can also have scenarios where your arm gets cut off, and as you're bleeding out, you can still fight. You can still get kills while you're staggering around bleeding profusely. There are just silly moments like that. really like the game. I've been on and off it for a while now. I originally played it on the Epic launch when it first came out. It was relatively decent price, but I've got it on Steam now to be able to play with other friends, and it's been pretty decent. And if I remember correctly, let's just type this in. It's not too bad price-wise. It does go on a sale every now and then as well, and on Steam I would recommend picking it up. I really would. The game is, as I said, it's stupid fun. It's got some really memorable moments, really well designed maps for the most part. There can be little bits of pieces of jank gameplay, but the developers are regularly updating the game. They do have decent patch rate. The stuff tends to work quite well. There's even a decent amount of... Oh, they even have battle passes, which are a bit of a dirty term, but they don't vanish after a battle pass season has finished. In fact, you can click between... There's 2 currently. And you can click between either of them and earn progress on whatever one you want. And it has a track of free stuff and paid stuff. If you really want the paid stuff, you can. You don't have to. There's plenty on the free track that I've found that's just... as it is purely cosmetic. There's no advantageous weapons or anything on there, so there's not even an incentive for you to really buy this thing. Unless there's a particular sword or an armor piece that you really want. And that goes into the customization, which you've got multiple faces to choose from, voices. You can unlock more stuff as you play the classes, and you get there's like an in-game currency. I think they're called like talents. I think it's talents is what you're unlocking, and those will allow you to buy different skins for swords. You have like rusty swords, like very ornate, you know, kind of, as I said, almost fantasy-like looking designs on your swords. And there's quite a few different weapons in there, and I think they're always looking at being able to add more in as they go along. And so by the end of it, you can customize your character, and you can look pretty swish with all these like fancy armor pieces and stuff. So it's quite nice. Multiple helmets and armor sets to unlock for each class. And yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll continue adding new maps and stuff to Chivalry 2 as they go along. It seems like the community's fairly healthy. I found it to be relatively easy to find a match. As I said, the maps are fun. They're always different, and even in the downtime, if you're not playing the 64-player mode, you've got a 1v1 mode if you want to play that. There's smaller matches of team deathmatch and stuff like that, which have their own unique maps as well, smaller sort of arenas and gear like that have been made. And there's like practice where you can fight against bots, so you can get used to using different weapons and stuff. So, there's even horseback. I mean, you can ride around some maps on horses. I haven't seen them for a while, actually, so maybe they took them out. I don't know, but I do remember there being horseback combat as well. But yeah, it's pretty fun. I've enjoyed every time I've been on it. I've walked away from it just kind of happy, because you're always making progress. You're always unlocking stuff, whether it's weapon experience. Or class experience or whatever, and yeah, it's just decent, silly fun. So, Chivalry 2, that's why I love it. I guess the only thing to say, performance-wise, runs pretty well. It's got good audio, nice voice acting, sounds pretty nasty. Weapons sound, pretty brutal when they hit, and graphically it looks nice, and yeah, it runs pretty well. For my part, anyway. Obviously, it's always an interesting thing to talk about performance, but with PC gaming, with all the variations, it's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? I mean, it runs well for me. Might not run well for you, but hey, that's what the Steam refund policy is there for. If it doesn't run well, you can always get your money back. But I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for listening, everybody, as always, and I will catch you next time. Thanks again. Bye.